this afternoon to be introducing the next piper. Although he should need no introduction to most of you, as he's been a stalwart attendee at this conference for some 45 years. Is that right, John? Yeah. Way back to Middleton Hall. Yeah. Well before my time, but I've read the accounts of it, and I doubt he's missed more than a couple of all those years. And John served with distinction on the committee of the Piobaireachd Society for many, many years, and has made many contributions to the wider piping community, but particularly in London and the south of England. Now, my first meeting with John was over 40 years ago, and a few months after that, in November 1977, he kindly invited me to his home for a weekend. His home near Croydon at the time.
That's right.
And he introduced me to Piobaireachd, so he's got a lot to answer for. And a few weeks ago, when I was recently moving home myself, I came across an old manuscript book from that time, where I've got the original notes from John taking me through the Glenys Mine and Blackdonald's March. So there you go. Now, John was also responsible for providing introductions to my two principal teachers, James Campbell for Piobaireachd and Pipe Major J.B. Robertson for light music. Kindnesses which I can never repay. But today John is here to speak about his teachers and to take questions regarding their styles, teaching methods and their characters, and I'm sure there'll be a few lighter anecdotes as well. We're hoping this will be a very interactive session, and with as many questions coming from the floor as possible. But we are quite limited on time and we need to be finished by 4:15, hence the fact that we've brought this forward a few minutes. So, John, let's kick off. Can I start off by asking you just to set the scene and asking you who you yourself have been taught by over the years?
I started in the Boys Brigade, and I was taught by a Gordon Highlander called Harold Smith, who attended the Willie Ross's Castle course during the war. He ran the Boys Brigade band, and when he retired I took over the band, very cheekily, because I was very young. My first real teacher was J.B. Robertson of the Scots Guards. But before I go on, I'd like to say this is a very light, this is not a lecture, this is a very light session. This is my swan song. I won't be speaking again here because I've spoken too many times. And what I wanted to be is a question and answer and just pitch in everyone. Now, my teachers were J.B. Robertson, 2nd Battalion of Scots Guards, but before that, old Angus Macpherson of Invershin, son of Callum Piobaireachd. That was my first lesson with him in Glenfinnan, and that was my first professional contest in Glenfinnan, and he was judging me. And what I'm going to do is pass round a host of photographs, which please feel free to keep. I've copied them off, of all these great notable people, and if you wish to keep them, keep them. If not, just put them back on the table. So if I may pass them round. There's one of me, it's not because of me, but it shows that old Angus. Pass them all round. Right, so my first teacher was JB, and a great player, a very, very great player. If you look at the results for the 1930s, he completely dominated. This is Bessie Brown, a sister of Bob Brown. She kept all the results to 1946 of the games, around the games. And she started doing that in 1929. And from about 1931-32, JB started to dominate all the light music. Really, not many people got a look in, not even Willie Ross, who was competing at that time. The sort of people that he competed against were R.B. Nicol, Jazz Robertson, that's not JB, Jazz Robertson, who else? Robert Reed, Malcolm McPherson, R.U. Brown, and he was competing against those in the light music and the pibroch, but in the light music he dominated, and there wasn't a games that he didn't attend. I think I'm right, that he was never out of the first three, and in the main was number one. And just think of the opposition. So he was some player. The other people that I would talk by was old Angus. I'll tell you about that in a moment. David Ross of Rose Hall, Bob Brown of Balmoral, Bob Nicol, Ronnie McCallum, Duke of Argyll's piper, and the last was Donald McPherson, who taught me for the last 35 years. When JB went, I went to Donald and never really looked back. JB always used to say to me, he lived in Chelsea Square in London, and he always used to say to me, look, I'm not the repository of all knowledge. Please seek out and listen to all the pipers you can, and if you can get to them, then get to them. Now I was you might say now, I'm very brash and forward, and I really did beard these people in their dens. I mean, R.B. Nicol, for example, it was very difficult. He judged me at a Boyne. I played Mary MacLeod, and he called me over and he said to me, you got this, that, and you could do this. And I said, can I come and see you? And he said, yes, yes. And that's the start of my relationship with Bob, and I've got a tape of that in a moment. And my last time was John Burgess. John was judging around the games, and he was judging at Tain, and he judged at Strathpeffer, and he judged me, and afterwards I said to John, look, can I come? And he said, of course. And they all said yes. And I used to go. And I used to get in my car, drive up from the south overnight. I'm here, and get lessons from them. Now, I'm very lucky because I've got some tapes that have never been played before, never been recorded, not in public, not played in public. And what I want to do is play, just before I open the session for questions, I'll just play you some of these players. Now, bear in mind, the recordings are very old. They're older than me, and that's saying something. And the first one I'm going to kick off with is JB playing McCrimmon Will Never Return. And he's playing that back in the early 30s. I can't give you the exact date, but it was, I think, recorded by Parlophone, and it's about 1934, 33. Let's see if we can hear it. I hope you can. Now I'm going to stop it because I want you not only to listen to the tune, but just think of the quality of the pipe. We're talking 1934, 33. One would have expected a pipe, flat, difficult for our ears. No, it's not, is it? That's way back. That's the earliest recording I got. But then JB was regarded as the greatest march player of his era. James Campbell told me that. David Ross told me that. John Burgess told me that. He was the greatest march player of that era.
I think for those of you that have read John Wilson's A Professional Piper, I think that records the fact in there as well. So there's quite a lot of evidence towards John's statement there.
And just to show his playing of that era, I have got JB recorded in mono, and it's many, many years ago. I think it's about 46, 47. This is him playing a slow air, and well, you're here. If I've got the right side. Maybe I got the wrong side. Yeah. Thank you. Not that. Now. Again, note the tone of the pipe. When you think of the era that you're listening to, one wouldn't have thought that it would be like that. And again, I think you've got, we were only saying it, Roddy and I think the top competing pipers of that era, they had very good pipes. But I think the also-rans, like myself, would have had a poor pipe. I think compared with them, we wouldn't be at the races. Now, all these chaps, they all play excellent pipes. When I hear them come down south, you don't hear a bad pipe. But when I started in the London contest in the 1960s, you heard poor pipes.
Question.
Yeah.
Would you, when you're talking about his pipes, and you mentioned the pitch, like it should be flat because it's, 70, 80 years ago.
Yeah.
Was he ahead of his time?
No, I don't think, well, you answer that.
I think he was, having gone to Robbie myself, principally for light music, for 6 years up to his death. I think he was well ahead of his time. He was playing a set of pipes that he played with his son, Jimmy Robertson, who's now in his 80s down in Devonshire. But he played a Robertson chanter, Robertson's of Edinburgh, no relation to him. And I think he was pushing that chanter, from what he told me, to probably about the same pitch as Hardy's were at in the 70s and early 80s, before the male chanter came in.
And I wonder why he wanted to do that, like, to push ahead, like Rob Wallace and I were chatting earlier about pitch. And my thinking on it is that we keep climbing higher and higher, but that's due to the bands.
Mm-hmm.
The bands are pushing it, and I actually, to my ear, it's too high. And so when I hear that recording, that's probably similar to the pitch that I'm playing at.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
Well, interestingly,
so long ago.
he said to me once, he said, if you wish to copy a pipe, go to Donald McPherson. He said, he's setting the standard. Oh, and by the way, John, the maker that is setting the standard is Niall. Niall raised the pitch. Donald didn't. He still played a Hardy right to the end. But Donald's pitch is down. But interestingly, right at the end with Donald, when the last 10 years or so, when Donald played here in 1998, I invited him to play. Every note, every hole on his pipe chanter had tape.
Right.
And he never told me, and I didn't like to ask him, but I think he had pushed the reed down to go up, and I think he'd corrected the notes with tape. Let me play JB again, playing a march. Right, well that's, I think, all the playing I've got of JB. I then got to RB Nicol. Now that was a completely different kettle of fish. I'll play you my instruction that I received from Bob Nicol. Now I've got a man in here, I've got to be careful what I say, because I think he holds him in as an idol, probably. I went to Bob quite a few times. Lovely cottage with that window looking out on the hill. And the first time I played, I played Mayor's Praise, and there was a deer on the hill. It was lovely. And when I finished, he said, "Oh, you're cutting it up in little bits. You're cutting it in little bits." And I would say to him, "Oh, am I, Mr. Nicol?" "Yes." Remember, I was extremely young. And I said, "Well, would you take me through the tunes?" "Of course, of course." I said, "Right, now I thought I was going to receive instruction. Did I receive instruction?" "Well, I don't think I received instruction. This is what I got." Oh, and by the way, he insisted on recording it. I had a microphone which you could switch on and switch off. And the bits that I wanted from him, he switched off.
Oh yes, of course, my speaking of the do. Yeah, I'm playing slow. Now, one other thing what I've got to take on. I played last year for you, and a boy, William McLeod. Yes. Do you remember? Yes, you did. Now, the only thing I can think that I play it the same as Bob Brown. I'm going to take Bob playing it. Yes. Now, the Coolmiller. I wouldn't take so much grip of that Louis, that last Louis in your through one. Between you and
wait a minute, you're not getting that just quite right.
Now, that's not a bad lesson, because when I said to him, would you take me through, I think it was MacLeod's controversy, he said, certainly. And he started singing, I put the tape on. He never stopped. He sang the whole tune, ground, variations, Turla, Kunla, all the way through. And when he got to the end, he said, there you are. And I thought, come, thanks. Yeah.
Do you think that's a hangover from Johnny MacDonald? Like
Well,
teaching them together?
Let me tell you that I went and played to him, I told you, Mary's Praise. And he told me I was hacking it in little bits. And he said, you're not playing it like John MacDonald. And I say, oh no, I'm playing it as Mr. Robertson's given it to me. Oh, no, you've got to follow John MacDonald. Oh, yes, now listen. And he would sing it again. That's how he played. Oh, right, sir, right. And then I'd have to practice and do it. And then I'd go back, and he'd say, you got it? And I'd say, yeah. John MacDonald, you've got to play like John MacDonald. Huh? So I went back, I had a recording of this, and I went back to JB, and he said, how did you get on? And I said, oh, very well. I said, except that he didn't like My Mary's Praise. Why not? And I said, well, he told me I was hacking it in little pieces. What? I said, yes. Anyway, I've got to play it like John MacDonald. Utter rubbish, he said, utter rubbish. And that's the one criticism I have of Bob. Bob Nicol was slavish to John MacDonald. Do you agree?
Yeah, he was. He would say, that's ever the way I got it from old Johnny.
Yeah.
You can take it or leave it. Now, and then as you left the lesson, he would say, see and spread the gospel.
Now, the first man I ever went to, I was very young, Glenn Finnan, and in the photograph there you'll see me in front of him. And at the end of the tune I played Black Donald's March, and at the end of the tune he went to me. And I went over and I, yes sir, and he said, come and see me in the tent. So off I went afterwards, I went to the tent, and he said, you're not playing that tune correctly. Oh, why am I not playing it correctly? Because you're leaving out the doubling of the first variation. In Piobaireachd, which I was using, there's no doubling in the first variation. And James Campbell told me later it shouldn't be there. So there's a division straight away. Old Angus said, you've got to play it. Have you got it? Play it to me. And I played it to him. That's right, you've got it. Now you play that. No prize here if you don't put that in. I said, oh. So, I mean, that's unfair, isn't it? I come up, I've been taught properly, I thought, and he says, no prize, you haven't put it in. He was absolutely adamant. Very nice man, I liked him very much indeed. He was very correct. I went back to JB, and I said to JB, did you get anything? No. What did you play? I played Black Donald's March. Well, who was judging? Seton Gordon, he doesn't know anything about it. Jock MacDonald, no good. Old Angus, oh, Old Angus, yes, he sent best wishes to you, Robbie. Oh, good, thank you very much. Not a very good play, you know. Now, isn't that interesting? Nobody would dare say that except JB. Not a very good player.
Well, I can certainly support that, John. I mean, the comments when I was going to Robbie, I mean, he was quite disparaging about Willie Ross and the over expletive embellishing of tunes. And G.S. McLennan, well, George had the fingers to do it, but he didn't have the bagpipe that would stay in tune long enough to boil an egg.
Yeah, he once told me about Robert Reed's pipes. Robert Reed played MacDougall, a set of MacDougall. And he said, I said to Robert Reed, he's a tremendous player, isn't he? Yes, good player. But his pipe. I said, why? What was wrong with his pipe? Oh, when he first blew up, it was impossible. It was dreadful. And it took him 30, 40 minutes. But when he came back, it was good, he said. Very good. So it's interesting what these pipers have picked up. And isn't it nice to know that Robert Reed was human? You know, and I'm going to tell you soon that Donald McPherson was human. I'll show you that. But before I do, I go on to R.U. Brown. I went to R.U. Brown, one of the nicest men, kindest men, lovely instructor. And the first time I met him, I was playing in Buckingham Gate. I was playing in the amateur Piobaireachd. I don't know what age I was, young. And he heard it, because Robbie had told him about me. And he came over, and do you remember, I don't know if any of you knew Buckingham Gate, but we used to go down into the cellars to tune. And I was down there tuning, and R.U. Brown came along, and he said, excuse me, and he tapped me on the shoulder, and he said, give me your chanter. He took my chanter. And now, you know what it's like. I mean, can you imagine doing this today? He took the chanter out, took the reed out, he got his skein do, and he went, and I was standing there, and I said, oh dear, oh, I thought I could never play again. Put it in. That's better, now play. And it was better. It was better. And then he told me the story about Bob Nicol. They used to go round together, and when Bob Nicol played, before he played, Bob Brown used to creep if he could and get to his pipes without him knowing, and he would take the chanter out, he said, and I just pushed the reed down a bit, because old Bob always played flat on top. Have you heard that?
Yeah, no, I haven't heard that, but he did.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. I've got now Bob Brown winning the Gillies in London with Mary MacLeod. Bob Brown won the Gillies, I don't know, 8, 10, 12 times.
It was certainly 6 or 7 on the bounce, wasn't it, John, in the 60s or 70s?
He just went on winning.
Well, I think it was 10 or 11 times in total. And again, you know, the standard of players, I mean, we're not just talking about the old guard that John has already mentioned. We're talking about the McFaddians, we're talking about Pipe Major Angus MacDonald, Pipe Major Ian Morrison,
Yeah.
and various others during that period, Hugh McCallum,
Yeah.
you know, etc. So
This is him playing Lament for Mary MacLeod. In fact, he taught me that, and I modelled myself on that ever since. In the Gillies. Notice the quality of the pipe. Again, very good. Now, would you say that was a bit slow? You see, that's the modern playing is faster, isn't it? How about the pipe major in the corner? A bit slow, do you agree with me?
Yes.
Yeah. Right, so that was Angus McPherson, Bob Brown, Bob Nicol, David Ross of Rosehall. By the way, every one says David Ross of Rosehall. I don't know if anyone knows in this room, but I believe he wasn't born in Rosehall. I believe he married Rosehall. He married his wife, who came from there, and he called himself David Ross of Rosehall. He won a major contest in Inverness when he was 83, I think it was 83, in the light music. So a lovely player, a very good piwa player, very kind man, always took me through a tune, and he was very, very pleasant, and always ended the lesson by saying, be careful, get permission from Robbie, because Robbie and David were a bit like that, because David started judging, and one day at Richmond, on the Richmond Games, he didn't place Robbie first, he placed him second. And Robbie thought that was a pretty bad thing, and he let him know. So that was David Ross. The Duke of Argyll, Ronnie McCallum. Now I don't understand how I got tied up with him. I think I was fishing at Onig. I can't remember how I got tied up, but I did. And he taught me Clan Campbell's Gathering. I liked him. Good teacher, and but I didn't go back to him. Something about it that I didn't enjoy. I don't know what it was, so I didn't go back to him for many lessons. And then we come to Donald McPherson, who I rate of all the best teacher. Close second was JB, but JB could be a bully. And he could be very, very hard. If you didn't
Can I
play it...
interject there, John?
You stop that. You've
Oh,
got
no, I'd say he, not could be, he was.
Oh.
I think you're underselling it.
Yeah. Donald was completely opposite. He was just lovely to be taught by. But when you met Donald, you all knew him very well. You would have thought that he was insignificant, he was quiet, he was very reserved, he was retiring, he was pleasant, he was easygoing, until he taught you a piwa. Then it wasn't easygoing. And my lesson used to go like this. I'd arrive, have coffee, Gwen would say, I'll leave you now, I'll go next door. She went off. And Donald would say, right John, play the tune, what are you going to play? And I said, chanter or pints? Oh, pints. Now, you haven't got your best reed in, have you? What do you mean, Donald? Put the oldest, nastiest reed you've got, put it in. You don't want to play the best reed in front of me. You've got a competition coming up. You've got to save them. Now, can you imagine going to Donald McPherson, playing some old reed that wasn't quite right? Impossible. I had to have my pipe bang on. I was proud. I was proud to go and play in front of him. So I played the piwa all the way through. He never interfered. Once in about 20 years he jumped up once and tuned me, but other than that he never interfered until the end. And then at the end he would say, oh, that was good. Oh, that was very, very nice. Oh, that was a lovely tune, John, yes. Oh, good. Come and sit down. No, that was a lovely tune, John, but... Directly he said the but, I knew I was in it. I was in trouble. Come and sit down. And I would sit down, and then he would start. And he would give you insights into piwa that no one else had given me. He was a musician. He wasn't just a piper. He was a musician. And I'll give you some sorts of the insights that he gave me. You may have heard them before, but they're worth repeating. John, when do you start? Sorry? When do you start? I said, I start when I start. No. There is a point. If you're in recital, or if you're on the boards, there is a point you start. If you miss that point, you put the judges on edge, you're on edge, you won't be as good as if you go at the point when you start. But how do I know? You know when to start. And I thought about that, and it took me a long while. There is a point, you're on the boards, you're tuning, and there is a point when you start. The next thing he taught me, and I couldn't understand this either, it took me a long while. He said, you're coming in on the beat. Yeah, that's good, isn't it? No. What? No. All right, the music's there, look, Donald. No, you've got it wrong. You come in a fraction before the beat. What? Before? How can that be? You try. Follow me. And then he'd get the chanter. He'd say, no, stop, do it again. No, stop, do it again. You're not following me, John. Do it again. John, you're not following me. I'll do it. You watch me. And I'd watch him. And he'd do it. And then he'd say, right, now do it. Follow me. Ready? 1, 2. No, you still haven't got it. And he wouldn't let go until I got it. And when I got it, fine, that was okay. And then he'd say, that's good. Right, next tune, and we'd start on another tune. And he would give me insights like that. And I always remember I was watching television, I was watching Pavarotti give a masterclass. And he was one of the great singers now, who's singing tenor. He was giving him a lesson. And Pavarotti stopped him. And he said, very good, very good. Oh, I'm so pleased, maestro. Yes, that was excellent. But he said, you came in on the beat. Yes, maestro. I was smiling, you know, he thought he was doing a good thing. And Pavarotti said, no, you don't come in on the beat, you come in before. Well, no, sir, that's wrong. No, I'll sing it. And Pavarotti then sung and said, you come in just a fraction. By the way, it's such a fraction, you wouldn't know, you know, unless you really concentrated, you wouldn't catch it. And Pavarotti said the same thing. And I thought, there was Donald years before who told me that. And there was Pavarotti. So maybe it's a standard thing among the real top professionals. But I did regard Donald as a genius. He was a musician. He just didn't teach the pipe. He was a complete musician. And the standard of his pipe was just phenomenal. And I always thought that he had such a volume that his pipe must be very hard and very difficult. And one day he said to me, you want to play my pipe? Oh, yes please, Donald. So I got the pipe, blew up, I couldn't play it. It was so easy. I couldn't play it, I blew it out. And yet he had a great volume, and I never quite understood. And he used to say to me, the way you get that, John, is that you have tuning. Every drone must be in tune with every note. When every drone is in tune with every note, you'll get the volume. You'll be there. And he had a tremendous pipe. I mean, you've all heard it, haven't you? But the interesting thing is, I'm going to play a recording of him now. That pipe, that quality of pipe, didn't record well. It's not the same as when you heard him play here. We played, well, he last played at the Royal Hotel, didn't he? And it was marvellous. But the recording didn't pick up on it, and has never picked up on it. Even the wonderful recordings that he's put out in CD, it doesn't really do justice to the pipe. Anyway, let's play him, and I'll play something that you wouldn't have heard. Right. This is Donald winning, I don't know where, Oban, and he's playing a tune he didn't like, called The Lament for the Union. He found it, he said it was a long, difficult tune, and if he said that, then you bet it was. How are we doing? Okay.
5 minutes. John.
always thought Donald, when you heard him play a Piobaireachd, he seemed to me to grab the Piobaireachd. He seemed to be, he had a wonderful attack, which is difficult to, I can't give you the explanation of that, but I always felt, I mean, Lord Lovat's Lament, I've got him winning at Oban playing Lord Lovat's Lament. He grabs it in a way I can't, and I've heard other players and they can't. My last comment on Donald is that, believe it or not, don't quote me, but he was a slave to the music. He was a slave to the manuscript. And I'll tell you why. He always, with me, I mean, he knew the Piobaireachd I was going to play, but he always had the manuscript open, and you'll see the photographs there. I think I'm showing him looking at his manuscript, and he's following it, making pencil notes all the way through. Now, in the marches that he plays, one of his favourite marches was Major Manson's Farewell to Clackenthrussell. And if you listen to the recordings that he's played, he's recording it more than once, you'll see when he gets to the end, hada hida hida hada hum, but oh hum, and he's off. He doesn't hold like you would, like I would, like you would. We all tend to go hada hida hida hadum da ho ho hadi. We tend to hold the second A. Donald cuts it, and I don't like it. So I said to Donald once, I said, in fear and trembling, I said, are you sure you're happy with that tune? Oh yes, yes, played that well. And I said, Donald, the last note, dee da ha dum da dee da ro hum da dee. I said, you're off, you don't mess. Have you got the music, John? Yes. Look at the music. So I've got the music, and I'll pass it round. Keep the copies if you want to. The last note of each part is a quaver. And Donald said to me, John, what is the note? I said, it's a quaver. Why are you holding it? Well, that's the way it's done. Ah, maybe done by you and the others, but it shouldn't be. It's a quaver. And you've got to get the other two notes in at the beginning of the next part, haven't you? Yes, you're squeezing them, you're making them demi-semi-quavers. They're not, are they? No, they're not. That's true. And if you listen to him, he cuts the last note. And I don't like that. But that's why he did it. And in Piobaireachd, he always had the manuscript in front of him. I think I've shot my bolt. Any questions? I'll be only too happy to answer.
Just one. See, with the likes of JB Robertson, do you think these guys have a better understanding of how to manipulate the reed to get a better sound without doing anything to the chant?
I don't know. Very difficult. Donald knew how to set a pipe up, there's no doubt about that. He set mine up sometimes, and for the next hour or two, it was beautiful. I thought it was. But
Robbie was certainly into re-drilling and scraping holes and building them up with resin. And he was talking about it, and I remember him saying to me in the 80s, you know, that tape was only a temporary solution, and you really needed to carve the hole out and fill it. If you had a flat nose, that was
Donald told me that.
Yeah.
Many a good chanter's been ruined when somebody actually had to do it.
Absolutely. I never had the courage to do it, Walter.
John, who was it that taught Robbie at the Queen Victoria School?
Sanderson.
Who?
Sanderson?
No, I don't think so.
Sanderson?
I remember
But he rated Alec Ross, not Willie Ross.
Yeah.
Alec Ross taught him, as well as Willie Ross. And he rated,
No, Alec Ross was the pipe major of the
pipe
guard
major
stepper.
guards.
but he must have been taught
It was taught at
At Dunblane.
QBS,
as
Yeah.
a boy.
and I think it was Sanderson was the
Yeah.
pipe major there.
Sanderson.
I think, but
Because he went there, I remember young Robbie telling me that he went there after his father was killed in the First War,
yeah.
Right,
which is quite obviously appropriate this year.
right.
And from that day onwards, he always carried a small picture of his father.
Did he? I didn't
Yes,
know
with him
that.
at all times.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So
Bobby-
also affected him very badly as a young boy.
You think Bobby was a hard, tough man. In fact, he was lovely. He was soft. He'd swear like a, well, he was a trooper. I mean, he would, every expletive under the sun, and he'd be hard on me at the lessons, very hard. But he was soft. He would do anything for me, and he gave me, he led me into his bedroom once, and he had all the kit laid out. He had his pipes, he had his chanter, he had all his kilts, he had all those manuscripts that I've got, Macfarlane, MacDonald, all those, and he said, take it away, because he knew he was getting old, and I said, I'm not doing that, that's your son's. No, he's no good, he's not playing properly. I said, I'm not doing it, I'm not taking them. Look, you will, you understand? You can imagine, can't you? Oh! And I said, look Bobby, no, I can't, you will! And he was getting very, very upset, and he got red in the face, and I said, well, I'll take the manuscripts then. Right, he said, and we piled up the manuscripts, and I went out like this to the car, and I've still got them, and I still don't know what to do with them. And then when he passed on, he left that to me in his will. That was given by the Piping Society of London to him in 1936, when I think he was going somewhere.
Palestine.
Palestine, right.
See that knuckle? It's a bit lumpy. That's a result of Robbie hitting me over that hand with that practice.
We hear
True tale.
on the recording of his march playing, I got my metronome out. It's floating between kind of 83 and 88 beats a minute.
Yeah.
Why is the trend as solo players now, we play so much slower? Have you noticed that in time,
Yes.
the big
Donald
drop-off?
said to me, only 10 years ago, Donald said to me, all the boys are playing too fast. I said, are they? Oh yes, he said. We lose the beauty of the tune. I played him old Bobby's tape back in '45, and he said, my word, that's so fast, John.
But, I mean, you hear old recordings and they all play fast.
They do.
I think you'll find there
That's
that
a recording?
Robbie was actually, John McClellan described Robbie as the first of the modern era of light music players. And when I asked John what he meant by that, he said Robbie played considerably slower than his contemporaries, than Bob Reed, than
Really?
Willie Ross, and this sort of thing. And it was around about 80 to it seemed to be 78 to 80 was what he was teaching me.
Yeah. But I think Glenn makes a good point. I think modern day it is much slower than
Yes.
what
Oh,
even in my
it's
time.
super
It's
slow.
much
Yeah.
slower than
Yes.
what it ever was. It's safe, careful playing. And I was speaking to Ian McClellan about this only the other day because I put on a recording of Big Ronnie playing Glenfinnan Highland Gathering.
I listened
Making
to it.
allowances
Yes.
for the
Yeah.
tape being maybe slightly speeded up, you know. He said to
He
me
did.
that was how Ronnie played the tune at that tempo. You just wouldn't hear it that way today.
No,
Do you think it's better
nowadays
now?
it's, no, I don't. I think nowadays, like if I listen to recordings from 30, 40 years ago, so many players have styles. Where nowadays we all play the same.
Now, I was just going to say that to you. I think JB today wouldn't win a prize. And I'll tell you why. I've got a recording of him of every 2/4 mark. Every heavy Strasbourg and heavy reel, you know the one. And if you listen to his marches, he puts in what he wants. He alters them. There's no doubt about it. He alters them. Now, he went on the boards and he altered them. And he used to say to me, are you going up? I said, yes. He said, right, you're going to teach the judge how to play it. Don't worry about winning. You're going to teach the judge how to play it.
I mean, you have like, Alistair Gillis could do that. He could alter a tune and get away with it.
Yeah.
But Glenn Brown couldn't get away with it.
Not today.
No, because we all have to play, and I don't know if that's, you know, the way that the judges look at it, but you listen to Oban, Inverness, London, Glenfiddich, everyone plays
They do.
very much the same, you know, the same timing and tempos.
They do.
And why is that? How has
It's
it?
just safe playing. It's just
But that's what I mean.
crept in because you know you're just wanting to get through. Hope the good pipe and the.
But like, I remember a couple of years ago, I played at Inverness, and was told that I was playing Mach 5. You know, but to me, I was kind of going for it. And that didn't blend in with any of the other 30 players, so, you know, you're out.
Well, coming back to the point John makes about the changing tunes and everything like this, I was just teaching someone the other night the Abergavenny Highlanders, and I opened up, got off the shelf, my old copy of the Guards book, very heavily inked over by Robbie.
Yeah.
Third part of Abergavenny Highlanders, the 2 double E's. He hum ba da da he dee. 1 double E. The second one's just the Greystone. Fourth part of Abergavenny Highlanders, there's no burl after the e da dum ba ha dee dum, plain low A. Robbie used to go on about, did he not, John, over-embellishment?
He did.
Or expletive over-embellishment.
Yeah, I've got them all cut out.
All cut out.
Yeah.
There's an issue in the middle of like the early 20th century recordings, in that Parlophone and Bella Thorn, or Bella Horn, or whatever it's called, the records were 3 minutes 20 seconds a side, and you listen to a lot of these things, the professionals had to come in and go, this is an example of it that fits in here. The other part of it is that in the post-war era, we developed competition piping as its own art form, whereas a lot of these guys, being army pipers or from the rural Highlands, would have used the music as tools for dancing. So if you're, as somebody that plays in a Ceilidh band, playing a set of 2/4 marches, and you play it between 64 and 68 BPMs as it is in a competition, you'll be booed off the stage. But if you play it at 82, everyone's going to have a rollicking good time, but I'm trying not to worry about my grips and D-throws.
That's right. Last story about JB, and this is the last one.
Hold it for all things, John.
Yeah,
We've got to shoot for the train,
You
so
go.
thanks for having us, everybody.
All the best.
Take care.
The last story I have, and I was at dinner with John Burgess in Tame, and I said, it's a pity JB's gone. I said, you probably got some stories you could let me have. Oh yes, he says, I've got one. He won the March Past Boundary on London in a year, and he beat me, and that was all right. And he said to me, he said, there you are, John. He said, that's how you play it. That's why I beat you. And he said, I tell you what, if you ever beat me, I'll carry your case. Now, JB carried nobody's case, and John said to me, he said, next year, he said, I stayed with him, I stayed with him, went to London, and he said, I won the March Past Boundary, and he came second. He said, well, as we came away from Buckingham Gate, I said to Big Robbie, because John was young then as well, I said to Big Robbie, there's my case. What do you mean? Carry my case. Well, you told me you would. Oh, all right. Right, thank you very much.
Thank you, John. I'm sure there's been a lot of questions still in people's minds. Unfortunately, time has escaped us, but I'm sure John will be more than happy later on over dinner and this evening to chat further. Fascinating subjects, and certainly there's bits and pieces, even though I went to Robbie, as I say, for 6 years and have been friends with John for 40 years, there's bits that I've learned this afternoon, but you'll never hear it all about these guys. So, John, thank you so much indeed.
Thank you.